Hi there, my name is Dmitry. Um, Nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here. So I'll tell you about how growth and onboarding team works at Wrike. Let's start. So a few words about this talk. First of all, I'm responsible for product-led growth approach at Wrike. And the product-led growth term is quite broad. In our case, in 2020, we were mostly focused on trial stage and onboarding for trial stage, and that is what we will discuss. Previously, I worked on Wrike mobile applications, and I learned a lot about it. So if it's interesting for you as well, I'll be happy to answer any questions about it. This talk is more of a case than a theory. So we've tried several things throughout this year, and we have some lessons learned. So I will share it with you. I will share you results of our work, and but at the same time, we're still learning. I'm still learning, and I guess all of us are still learning. And I think the best way to learn is actually to discuss the cases from industry. So I'm very open to that, and I'm very interested in that. So if you're interested in that as well, and you have some relevance things to discuss, and you want to have deeper discussions, reach out to me. This is my email, so I'll be happy to connect with you. All right, let's continue. So about Wrike, probably all of you know about Wrike if you're here. So Wrike is quite complex, more of a platform than a solution for project management and collaboration. So there are a lot of different teams use Wrike, from small to large, from like 5 to 10 user accounts to thousands users in one account. And all of those teams use different setups, different organization structures, different set of tools. So there are no single onboarding, no single ideal onboarding that will fit all the teams, and that's probably the hard thing, number one. So another thing that I want to mention is that we are very sales-led, which means that we have great sales organization, we have great professional services and customer success organizations in our team that help users to start using Wrike, help them to kind of see the benefits of Wrike, help them to kind of set up Wrike, etc. As the onboarding team, we can provide value on all of the stages of the funnel by decreasing time to value in product, by showing benefits better, etc. But we are much more applicable for small teams, because small teams don't have help of the sales and the customer success organization, because small teams have to kind of figure out how to use product by themselves, and that's where we can help them by kind of educating them better, by showing different tips, by again decreasing time to value in the product. But at the same time, we need to keep the balance between the sales-led and the product-led. So the product-led approach and the sales-led approach have embedded conflicts. And like the easier to understand on those examples. So the very basic conflicts that they have are the following. So in case of the product-led, we are very interested in for the user to receive value as soon as possible, to start in a very simple, easy way and receive value, and probably for free, for some part of the value for free, so that when they reach some kind of limitations and they have to pay, but by the time they already use Wrike and they already receive value, already understand that Wrike is valuable for them. So then the price of starting is low. So in case of the sales letter requirements, we have requirement like to generate leads and to score them better. That's why registration form is quite complex. And we are very interested in converting them to talk to sales first, because sales can understand requirements better and they can show the benefits of the product in a much better way. And also, we are very interested in monetizing those accounts as soon as possible, mainly because customer acquisition cost is high in this case, because the sales organization itself is costly. So that's why those approaches has conflicts, and we are looking for the balance between those approaches. So another thing about us is that split tests or A/B experiments, if you call it that way, take 4 to 5 weeks, which is rather long. So we can only launch like two, in the very best case, three, but usually only about 2 experiments per quarter. That means that we don't have like much power to like validate all the assumptions that we have. So we have to select them wisely. Okay, so what have we done throughout 2020? So the strategy was to decrease time to value for the new accounts that just started and the value of like using product without hurting the sales driven model. So again, there's the balance between the product led and the sales led models. So how did we achieve it? Actually, we use several tools that I'll tell you about it. So first is UX interviews, and probably that's not the new thing for you. So probably most of you use it in your own practice. I just want to tell you how we do it. So it's quite easy to launch several UX interviews with different respondents in the remote work manner when you just have a Zoom conversation and you share the screen of your product. It can be this design mockups, or it can be working prototype or the product itself, and just ask the respondent to guide you with the voice, like to guide you and to guide your hand with like the mouse speaker. We can ask different things there. So we can start with the registration, we can continue with onboarding, we can ask respondents to do different things like, okay, imagine there is your team is joining tomorrow, so you have to set up the Wrike environment for them to start working tomorrow. So what would you do, right? So this kind of questions. And throughout the journey of the respondent in your product, you have to ask those 3 magical questions again and again. Those questions are: what do you see, what do you understand, and what do you want to do? So those magical questions actually help you to see all the problems that the respondents face that probably you don't understand because you are very familiar to your product, and new users might have problems with that. So you have to repeat those questions for about like 10 to 15 minutes. After that, respondent gets to the mode when they automatically answer that without need from you to repeat it again and again. But those questions are very powerful. All right. So the next tool that we use is called user energy analysis. I'm not sure that is the exact term in the industry. Probably it has some other name. But we call it this way. So the basic idea here is the following. So in the beginning of the journey, any new user has some specific amount of energy, and after facing the product and after experiencing the product, this energy can either decrease or increase. So it will decrease. It will increase if the user will receive value as soon as possible, if user will experience motivation, see something beautiful, experience progress, receive variable positive feedback, and just understand some meaningful things, meaningful for the user, etc. And the energy will be lost in case if the user experience cognitive load, uncertainty, complexity, will see something ugly, will face the need to do something without a clear reason for that, etc. So the basic idea here is that if energy is increased, then you increase the chance that your new user will continue down the funnel. And if the energy is decreased, then probably the user will churn. So that's not good. All right. Actually, those guys used the kind of method of this kind. So they called growth.design. And they build kind of media about onboarding, and actually they do the same. So they have this progress of the energy on the left, and very interesting to check it out. All right, so how do we use it? So first of all, of course, you start with UX interview. So you have to have at least like like 15, 20 interviews with different users to understand, to see the repetitive feedback and just to feed your intuition. And after that, you start like journey in your product by yourself. You try to imagine yourself in role of the new user and go throughout the journey and just write down all the things that increase the energy and all the things that decrease the energy based on repetitive feedback that you've received. And after that, so I do it in the following way. So I just take screenshots of the product in different situations and just write down the things that decrease or increase energy right here on those screenshots. So in the end, you will have the list of things that you can fix to actually decrease time to value in your product. So which is good. All right. So another tool that we use is called Proxy-metric for experiments. Well, the basic idea here is the following. So we're very limited to base our experiments on revenue because in our case, funnel is quite complex and the kind of revenue can be, well, it might take time till the account will become paid. So we actually needed some event that is much closer to the registration, so we can base our experiments on that. And actually we have it. So we have a kind of activation event. In our case, that's the specific activities in product during the first week. So if this activation happens, then the probability that account will continue down the funnel is bigger, and if it won't happen, then probably account will churn. So it works for us. All right. Now I have to step back a bit and just tell you some more information about how we work before moving to the next tool. So we sometimes use bundle experiments. What does it mean? It means that we make several hypotheses into one test. So why do we do that? The main reason is that we are, as I said, we're quite limited in the number of experiments that we can launch throughout the year. So we actually have to kind of use that time wisely and try to use it, get as much value from that as possible. And in our case, the experiments play three objectives for us. Well, first of all, experiments are required to validate critical assumptions. And of course, if we have experiment with the very critical assumption, we don't mix it with any other hypothesis. But at the same time, experiments also work as reporting. So we use it like to support team motivation, because that's the only way we can truly show how much money do we earn for the company without like the impact of any other aspect of our product or other teams in our organization. All right. So another thing that we use experiments for is actually to calibrate our intuition. Of course, because, well, we have a very complex funnel, so there are a lot of stages. We can invest in all of those stages, and we are kind of looking for the best thing that we can do with the best return on investment. So if we see that there are, like, we build things and it doesn't work, and for this particular stage, we might move to some other stage in the funnel. All right. So the next tool is actually based on that. So it might sound obvious, but it's very important. So you have to discuss hypotheses with the team before even the development starts. So for several reasons. Well, because the team has knowledge. So the team has like other product managers, UX designer, analysts, and development team. So they already have knowledge. They have some access to historical data, interviews, and UX tests that already happen. So they can probably tell you something more about your hypothesis and maybe even kind of help you validate it before you actually started the experiment. And another thing is that when you write down the list of hypotheses that are mixed in the experiment, they become the basis for the local metrics that you want to track as well, to understand better what worked and what didn't work. So so this is an example. For example, this is the bundle experiment. So there were several changes in this experiment. This is just a snapshot from our documentation. And based on the kind of this list and discussion of this list, we decided actually to split it down to two experiments. And we decided that like part of that was quite critical, and we shouldn't mix it with the other part. And based on this list, we created several local metrics to track the progress and to validate hypothesis one by one. But we launched it as the mixed bundle experiment to just save time for experimentation. All right, so another tool, and here I'll tell you one example. The case that we had is to monitor those local metrics as soon as possible. In our case, that's during the first week of the experiment, before the experiment ends. So let me tell you of the example. So we've launched during this year, there was an experiment with guidance. The onboarding guidance is like a series of tooltips that help user to navigate in product, like to help guide to like specific actions that they need to do to start working with Wrike. So the problem was that the design for those tooltips was not good, and they were not discoverable enough. So not many people actually discovered it, and that not many people actually had activities that were suggested by those tooltips. And well, the event of those activities and actually interaction with the tooltip is the local metric in this experiment, right? And the activation of the account that I told you about previously is the main metric for the experiment itself. But by monitoring the local metrics during the first week of the experiment and seeing that there are almost zero interaction with those tooltips, we could definitely say that the experiment will fail and that will provide no value, and we will see no significant impact in the 5-week period. So that's the lesson that we learn, and that's the thing that we do continuously, and I suggest you do it as well. So if you have local metrics and like experiment depends on that, you should monitor it as soon as possible, even if like you don't have your process of experiment didn't yet wasn't yet finished. All right. Okay, so for the results, so in 2020 we launched 8 experiments. So we have a cumulative growth 20% to activation in those experiments, which is quite good for the metric that is quite hard to influence, and based on the previous historical data. So, but main question here is, what do we need to get to kind of twice as much activation rate as we currently have, right? This is a very good question, and probably the main lesson and the main thing, well, the main lesson that I want to tell you about is that vision and strategic principles come first. And well, experiments is just the tool for you to feed your intuition, but no great change happens like after first iteration. So probably the first several attempts will fail before you find the optimized kind of solution for the huge problem that you're trying to solve. And your vision should guide you there, and your strategic principles should guide you there, no matter the complexity that you face during this path. So that's why there are the right thought process looks like that. So there are several important questions that you have to ask before understanding like what tools you need to use as like ongoing process. So first is how does success look like for your product area of responsibility? How does the huge success look like? So how can you grow, get a significant growth? And the answer to this question is actually based on the strategic analysis and deep understanding of the area that you're responsible for. So the second question is, which principles can unite the team and in the common movement to success? So the third question is, what signals can help you correct intuition and strategic principles? So the fourth question is, what big do you need to build to change, and what measurable results to achieve with it, like to get to the successful state? And the fifth question is the last one, how will you do it? So what's your process towards this successful state? I really recommend this great book on good strategy and bad strategy. Right. So there are a lot of cases, there are a lot of information on those 5 questions that I've just listed. All right, so there are several resources for you that I've mentioned or haven't mentioned, but they are good if you're interested in the product-led growth and in onboarding and like and on trial stage design, etc. So check it out. I hope you'll get the access to this presentation. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you, and let's discuss your questions.